to Merrifield's Gardening Advisor, brought to you by the experts at Merrifield Garden Center. Join us as we discover beautiful plants, new trends, and exciting ideas for your landscape. So let's get growing together. Merrifield's Gardening Advisor, bringing out the best in your garden.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Merrifield's Gardening Advisor. Peggy and I are so glad you could join us this morning on this chilly day. At least this morning when I went out, it was twice the temperature it was yesterday morning. So that's a good thing.
Yesterday morning, it was registering 0 at my house.
That's right. Oh, yeah. It's crazy. But because it's so cold, it's a perfect time to snuggle in and learn more about gardening here on Merrifield's Gardening Advisor. And we have a great show for you because we have a great guest. And Peggy, I'm going to let you introduce this handsome gentleman.
Absolutely. Well, this handsome gentleman who's between us is Robert Saunders from Saunders Brothers Nursery down in Piney River. So all of these things that they grow, and I'll let him tell you a little bit about what they grow, are Virginia grown.
That's right.
Grown in Virginia. So yes, Robert, just a little brief thing about what you're going to share with our viewing audience this morning.
Yeah, we're going to spend some time this morning hopefully talking about boxwood, and before we get into boxwood, we're going to talk a little bit about the history behind our business and all, which we think is a pretty proud history. We've got, as you can see on my shirt, you probably can't see it very well, but 100 years for our company.
That is so exciting.
Yes.
It is.
And
absolutely.
Hopefully transition and talk a lot about some flowering shrubs also, which I'm very excited about.
Great, great. All right, well, before we get started, let's let you know what's happening at Merrifield Garden Center today. Our seminars are up and running as usual and will for the next couple of months. So today at our Merrifield location, which is the seminar is at the Merrifield Community Hall right next to the location, and that's Success with Seeds. That's with Professor Larry Shapira. That's at 10 a.m. and it's 8104 Lee Highway, right next to our Merrifield location. And he's going to be just talking all about, raising flowers, herbs, anything you need to know about seeds. So that's a great thing to do, especially with the kids. So take advantage of this seminar. At our Fair Oaks location today, Robert Saunders is going to be talking about boxwood and flowering shrubs. So, Robert, we're going to give like a little hint today and
yes,
expand upon it when you get to the seminar.
We'll call this a commercial.
There you go. So that's at 10 a.m. at our Fair Oaks location. And at our Gainesville location, Andy Johnson's going to be talking about gardening for the birds. And I know, Peggy, you really enjoy watching the birds out in the landscape. So this is a perfect way.
I've really been feeding them well. Yes.
So turn your backyard into a bird sanctuary. That's a wonderful thing to do. So that's at 10 a.m. at our Gainesville location. We've got seminars coming up next week. 3 more wonderful seminars, and they are gardening with garden accents and focal points, pruning made easy, and using stone in the landscape. So if you haven't picked up the seminar schedule, which you can pick up at any of our stores, you can go online to merrifieldgardencenter.com and you can find the entire listing of seminars there. So hope you take advantage of that. Wanted to mention, my dad is going to come over and do a book signing this morning at the Fair Oaks location at 9:30, around 9:30. So if you want to get a book and get it signed, stop by at 9:30 today. And we're not going to take any phone calls today because we've got a lot of things to talk about, and so let's get to it.
A lot to share. And I'm very pleased because I was the wonderful recipient of a gorgeous book that Robert's father wrote himself. And I love the way he wrote it because it told it in small stories. And it's down on the farm. And I can appreciate that because I was from down on the farm too. So tell us quickly a little bit. In fact, can we bring up a couple of the early pictures, which I just love because I've, thank goodness, have salvaged some of the old ones of my family also. And I know Deb has too. But let's bring up a couple of those pictures and tell them who these people are.
Yeah, and we can go back, and this picture is about 1906, but I call it the 1915 picture. It's kind of the beginning. That's my grandfather in the middle standing on the step of the buggy, and they've all got musical instruments, and his other siblings are all there. His dad in the back left with the hat on. I guess back to the right as you're looking at the screen. The
family band?
Yes, they did.
Cool.
They were extremely musically oriented.
Very cool.
But really skipped by. It missed my generation on them. But the kind of the neat story is 5 of them got together, pooled their money, and started a farming business.
Wow.
A true partnership. And that partnership has expanded all the way to today, 100 years later.
I think that's fantastic. And now there's another older picture here too, which is your father.
Yes, my dad.
Paul.
That's in around 1947. He the nursery started as a 4-H project. You can see him there with a 4-H shirt on. His mother had been to Williamsburg and seen boxwood everywhere and fell in love with them and started teaching him how to propagate boxwood. I think the story goes he planted 77 plants, 25 of them survived, and it expanded out into a huge nursery that we are today.
Fortunately, I've had the opportunity to go down and visit the nursery, and it's fantastic. I love it. They've leveled the hills and made planting areas, and it's beautiful. You'll get the opportunity to see a couple of those pictures as we go through.
Yes, yeah, you'll see them as we get into them.
Yeah, but we've also got a close-up of your 100-year logo. I think there's a picture, if we can bring that one up. No,
we forgot about that one.
We talked this one first.
Let's talk about this one.
And that's me. That's us in the 70s in Boxwood propagation.
That was the brothers.
That's me on the left there with 2 of my siblings. There was 7 boys. My dad had a lot of workers, and that's a big planting of English boxwood that is getting ready to come out and go into production somewhere.
Isn't that fantastic? See, you were born with boxwood.
Lots of good, cheap labor.
Yeah, that's what I always say too.
I think that happened your way too.
That's right.
No, as parents, I'm not so sure that was really true.
I think he found out that's the reason the nursery had to expand pretty quickly. There was a lot of people to feed.
That's
Even though all 7 of you boys are nearby, there are 4 of you that are actively working there on the farm, right?
Yes, that's correct. There's 4 of us, and our business is bigger than the nursery. It's we grow apples, we grow peaches, and then we have our container nursery, and then we have a field operation. We have our own farm market that we sell a lot of our fruit, and we grow a lot of vegetables and all that we sell at that also. Right,
and what he's going to share with you today is 100 years of learning.
Yes, but I'm not 100 years old.
No.
I look good for 100, I think.
That's a nice looking logo. Very nice.
It's 100 years of learning through those who started this. Your father, who really, really took boxwood seriously, because he's one of the foremost people in the country working with these boxwood, and you're going to hear about some of the new ones. Everybody's working. We have to move on. We have to keep doing these things. We have to make it better and so forth. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about this as we go on.
Okay, well, let's take a quick break. Okay. And so you stay tuned and learn all about boxwood and some flowering shrubs too. Welcome back. You got to look at the seminar schedule cover there, so be sure to enjoy the seminars at all 3 locations today. Well, you could go from seminar to seminar to seminar, but
I don't
you
think
have to
so.
choose. Sorry.
Got to make a choice.
They're going to be going on for the next couple months, so be sure to take advantage of that. So we have Robert Saunders here with us today. We're so glad you're here, and you're talking right now about boxwood.
Yes.
Yes. And we're going to just let you run with it, honey.
Okay. Yeah.
Because he's got a lot to talk about.
And I think if we just talking in this segment about Boxwood Care, how important it is, because Peggy and I were talking, if we plant them and we do everything right up front, they're so easy to deal with. And I think if we could bring up that first slide, that I wish was what today looked like. Right. But that's some of our production fields there. We can, and I'll show you a little bit more about it, but we're sitting there right under the mountains and the Blue Ridge Mountains. And it's beautiful, but we're growing about 25 varieties commercially, and everybody thinks there's just 1 or 2 boxwood out there. And remember, there's no such word as boxwoods.
Yeah.
There's no S on it, but we go pretty broad there, but if we could get on to maybe the next slide, and I can kind of give you a little feel about, and this tells a whole lot to me. Those are beds that are getting ready to get planted with boxwood, and we'll go into specifics on it, but we spend a lot of time making sure that we're getting the proper drainage and things are taken care of front, because that plant will be in production anywhere from 1 to 5, 6, 7, 10, 15 years because it's slow. And you can see we mound the beds up much like the vegetable growers or something would grow in the same type of machinery.
And that's very interesting, because I've certainly seen that coming from a farm situation. As we said, boxwood really are not difficult, but they do have to have a good drainage.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And that's the first thing when you go to choose where I'm going to plant a boxwood, is get it in a place where you've got proper drainage. That is, if boxwood do not like wet feet. So if you've got a place that stays wet, you know, go out there and look at it and pick through that and make sure you're getting it into place. Drainage, drainage, drainage. That's the first thing that's going, you know, I get calls every day. I have this problem, that problem. Let's take care of planting. And I think I've got a chart on planting.
Yes.
And you've probably, anytime if you've ever heard me do a seminar, this is the place I start every seminar with. That if we plant the plant right, in the right location, we have so little problems. And you notice I'm planting the plant there very high. And we're up a couple inches above the soil, and to allow drainage away from it, and to allow those roots to flare to the laterally. They're not a deep-rooted plant, so pay attention. And you can see a lot of this if you go online to SaundersBrothers.com. That is on there under Boxwood Guide.
And that's great, because yes, I'm a great one who says you don't need the chemicals if you select the right place, you plant it right, and you keep it watered right.
That's exactly right. Water, it's huge. You know,
right plant,
they're
right
not
place.
Big drinkers of water.
No.
You get it established and kind of leave it alone.
Yeah.
Good drinks and then letting it dry. The worst thing you can do is give them sips every day.
Right.
I was in a discussion with someone yesterday, and they said they were watering their boxwood every few days, all the way through the summer. And I said, that's the
don't
worst.
Do that.
No, don't do that. If you want to keep them going. But and you will see and if you come to the seminar, the Boxwood Guide that I've written, this is the latest version, 2014, which is about a year old there. And you can pick up one of these there for a small price there, but it has everything that's in my brain, which is not very much.
I don't think so.
Dumped into it on this, so you can pick up one of those, or it's available free online at SaundersBrothers.com, Boxwood Guide. But
that's great.
I think it's getting them in the ground and getting them taken care of and irrigation right. But,
yeah. And that's fantastic. Now, let's touch. I don't like to talk about problems.
Yes.
But
we don't have problems.
like we said, if you plant this plant in the proper place, which boxwood will certainly tolerate a lot of shade, and some will tolerate a lot of sun, but most of them would rather not have the hottest afternoon sun, right?
Yes. Yeah. Any boxwood is going to want some shade. It's preferable to have some shade, especially that afternoon. Right. If you see a plant and you look at the tag and it says, I want to be in part sun, that it would take, sun is in the morning. I want afternoon shade.
Right.
Any plant that says I want part sun wants that sun to happen in the morning when it's cooler. But
now, we do need to touch on some of the things that do present some slight problems. Maybe more than slight.
Yes. Not, I don't want to go too deep, but the next slide I think will show, and this is something you may be seeing on some boxwood. That's leaf miner damage. There's a little guy inside of there who's a little worm that's eating around and causing that thing to blister out. It's a pretty easy thing to take care of. You know, go to Merrifield and they can tell you exactly what you need to do to apply to take care of that. It's to try to keep from getting real technical. It's an annual life cycle, so if you break that one time, it's pretty simple.
Finish up with it.
Yes, and that's something. And the leaf miner is something we're really trying as growers to try to find varieties that are resistant to it. And I think we'll touch on a couple of those a little later in the show.
That's good. Yeah.
You know, and there's some other things. You know, we get leaf miner is the pest issue we've got to deal with, and the other one, diseases. And I tell everybody with diseases, the way to take care of disease issues is to culturally take care of everything right up front. The planting, the irrigation, so many of those things can be taken care of up front, and you don't have to deal with them. If they root rot, get drainage right. But there is a new one on the block right now.
And I'm very excited to hear about this, and I know you are going to talk about it because you're always doing this research. But proper planting, proper watering, we just can't stress it enough, you know.
Yes.
Absolutely.
There is a new guy that we've got to talk about, that we've got to pull out of the closet.
Oh, you mean an issue?
Yes, a new issue.
You're not talking about a new boxwood.
No, well, I'll talk about that in a minute. But we do have a disease issue we've got to talk about.
Okay.
And I won't talk a lot about it, and I'll go over it more in the seminar, but it's called boxwood blight.
Right.
And people tell me when they see this dead branch here and there, they've got boxwood blight. This is a whole different ball game that we need. And the whole thing when we get to avoiding boxwood blight, it's keep the leaves dry, let air flow in it, and buy your plants from reputable people who are managing and watching out for this thing.
I think that is vitally important, and I am so pleased. I know that at Saunders Brothers, you don't allow anybody in your boxwood fields except your workers.
That's correct.
And so we know when we buy, I don't know that we said that, but we have for all these years at Merrifield Garden Center, because we're retail, we have bought these boxwood, we bought these shrubs, we bought these annuals and perennials, and so we can appreciate that when these plants come in, they are free of any of this.
And you want to prevent this from happening rather than trying to fight them.
Absolutely, yes. That's to me is the key to all of the disease issues. Let's deal with them up front, keep them out instead of having to try to fight them.
Great.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's take a quick break, and we will come back with some more great information. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Merrifield's Gardening Advisor. We're talking boxwood right now, and you mentioned there's some new things coming out? Are there some new kids on the block?
Absolutely.
I know there was a new problem on the block.
Some real new ones that I'm almost going to get kind of throw out there as teasers to you today. And you, a lot of the two that I'm going to show you are still probably 4 or 5 years down the road, but and this kind of is a lead in to, there's a lot of work going on out there in genetics and all, and as to where the new stuff is coming from. And if we bring up the first picture, this is a really neat one. This is a plant that we have found that we will probably get a patent on very soon. And yes, there are patents on plants, just like there are patents on.
I don't think a lot of people know that.
Yes, and so, and the reason this one is, why do we love this one? Because this plant, we talked about boxwood leaf miner a few minutes ago, that this plant is nearly resistant to that leaf miner.
That's great.
And sitting right next to its cousin plant, and which would be infested, this guy doesn't get it. And then that boxwood blight we talked about, this one is nearly resistant.
He's not getting it either.
It's very tolerant to that one. We use tolerance on the blight. But a really neat plant, kind of a rounded shape. And if you've planted Green Beauty or Jim Stauffer, this guy doesn't even have a name yet, but will be out hopefully in the next 2 or 3 years. And
because it takes time to propagate these things. Number one, to know, is it really going to do that?
Exactly, and to test it. And that's the thing that we feel. We've been looking at that boxwood for probably about 6 or 7 years. And to prove that it is going to work through the winters and the summers and those things. Yeah,
it takes all that. And unfortunately, there are some things that come into our industry that maybe didn't get that,
Yes.
But I know that yours do. And then there's another one.
Yes, another one, if we can pop it up, I'll briefly do this. This is one of the uprights that we've just found. We just got a patent on that one, and still yet unnamed, but that one will be a couple of years out. But it's a beautiful, beautiful plant, and the foliage is so green on it. In the winter, it's just a black green, and it will not open up with snow. It grows up.
That's great. Now, is this one going to be similar to Fastigiata or D-Runk? Because they're different.
It's going to be kind of between Green Mountain and D-Runk. It's going to be a little bit of a rounded, upright shape. Kind of a like a Christmas tree shape, but a little bit more narrower in that shape. Kind of a hybrid between the two of them. But again, I'm teasing, but this is to kind of tell you what we're trying to do to get ahead of the game.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see what the naming process is.
Yes. But you get 4 guys in the room and try to name it. That will be, be very interesting to see who wins. So,
you'll have to have a moderator. Debbie and I can come down and moderate.
That's right. We volunteer.
It would be good to have a girl in the room. But you know, just kind of going on into, there's so many varieties, and if you come to the seminar, we'll talk about a few of them, and you hang around, or if you get a Boxwood guide, the world is so wide on it. And again, and if we go on to the next slide, it's got a picture on that one, and that's the back of my home. That's one of those homes that my grandfather and him, they bought 2 farms. That home's been in the family for about 80 years, pre-Civil War home. But you can see, just looking from there, that's an early spring picture. Lots of boxwood mixed into the landscape, and then shrubs, again, just kind of breaking dormants, but using those boxwood as structure in that landscape to get us through and just to change it up a little bit.
Right. This is where you tried them. Yes. You trialed them there too.
Yes, I have about 25 varieties in my yard. Wow. And then we're trialing about 150 varieties.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Really, really neat the way we're doing that.
Beautiful setting.
It's so interesting to see it in the landscape. I think the next picture shows a little bit how you combined.
I surprised him with this one because that's in my back garden, and that plant came from Saunders Brothers.
Yes, that's kind of one of the neat ones. That's Peggy, you brought it up a minute ago. That's D-Runk, I believe, isn't it? Or was that Fastigiata?
I think it's Fastigiata. I do have D-Runk.
But it's a tall, pyramidal, narrow plant that naturally wants to go that shape. And many people, when I do seminars, they'll say, hey, Robert, did somebody just prune that to make that shape? And no, that plant naturally wants to grow into an upright shape like that.
I've been so pleased with those, and yeah, I have several back in that area.
Just doing that's an excellent, excellent plant for doing what you're doing there. And even people are making them into hedges and things like that versus just using them as accents.
Well, I have to use it as an accent. I'm not terribly good about getting out and sharing things. But before we go, Debbie, I really, because as all of you know, I'm very much a container person. And I talked with Robert last evening about these plants in containers, and I do think it's very important to share that with
and the winter weather, you mean?
Well, the winter weather, but growing them in containers and how beautiful they are.
Yeah, and that is a lot of people in a good picture here. I think this is from Peggy's garden, and putting them in containers and doing very well with them in containers. The key with the boxwood in the containers, you get several years of life out of it, 4, 5, 6 years. But what you need to do every once in a while is take it out, fluff those roots up, give it some new space to grow on it. But if those roots stop, the top stops. It's got to help to do something. And one of the things I'd like to, while we're on it, maybe we flip to the next slide, there is the snow. And again, another picture in Peggy's yard there. But I got a call the other day from someone who was talking about snow and how to deal with snow. And I think, to me, they asked if should they remove the snow. I think, like, if it's a tall plant, you remove it very gently from the plant. Don't go out and whip it because those branches are frozen. You'll break them. The small stuff, leave it covered if it's completely covered. Believe it or not, snow is an incredible insulator.
Oh, yes.
So don't run, the guy called me and says, I've got some of these barse dwarfs and things, which are real dwarf plants, and they said, I want to uncover them. And I said, absolutely not. They wanted to do it right ahead of that fun cold we had the other night.
Just leave them alone.
Leave them alone.
And that's very important. I thought it was amusing when he said, don't go out with the baseball bat. I said, no, I take a broom and gently
Yes.
With those big old ones in my
Yes.
front yard. But the others I leave alone.
And interestingly, some of these new plants we're getting plants that are rigid enough that can hold the snow. So we
Really?
don't have
That's
to
great.
do a lot of that.
And some of the new plants probably are more pest and disease resistant
Absolutely.
as well, right?
So, you know, the one we showed at the beginning of the segment, that plant will hold that snow, and you don't have to worry about it, and then
That's
you don't have to
great.
deal with all the
Great.
diseases and things too.
All right, well, when we come back from this break, we're going to get into some color, right?
Yes, absolutely.
We'll be right back. Robert Saunders of Saunders Brothers is here with us today, and we've been talking boxwood, but we're going to get into some complementary plants.
Yes, we're going to change gears completely.
gears, okay.
And focus on some of this stuff that I've got in my yard, not stuff, but these other beautiful plants. They, it's kind of like they said, what is dirt? Dirt is what you sweep under the rug when the preacher's coming. Soil is what you plant plants in. But some great plants we want to talk about today to complement your boxwood.
Yeah.
I think we've got some really neat ones in this segment that I'm absolutely in love with.
It's some of my favorite stuff.
That's right. And I think one of the interesting things with shrubs is the flowering shrub market in the plant business is hot right now. It's just everybody wants to be a part of the flowering shrub because there's so much happening in it. There's a huge race, and I talked about it a little bit earlier, the genetics side of it. We will literally see hundreds and hundreds of new varieties each year. So we're getting these, testing them, and trying to figure out which ones are good because they're not all good. And we're having to work through those and figure out. And you may pull out 1 out of 5 or 10 or 15 that are valuable, and maybe 1 out of 100 that's worthwhile.
But you're growing some neat ones, so just tell us about them.
Yeah, let's see if we can kind of jump into, and I will tell you up front, I'm a hydrangea freak. And I love my hydrangea. And this one, in kind of going back to the boxwood, that's a boxwood in the front, a golden one. The name is actually Golden Dream. Behind it is the Endless Summer hydrangea. It blooms, it reblooms on, it blooms once on its old wood and then starts reblooming sporadically on new wood. And you'll get anywhere from the pinks to the blues depending on your pH.
Right.
That one has struggled a little bit with some of the really cold temperatures. But I haven't seen them killed, but they're popping back good.
Don't snatch it out because we will now have had 2 years in a row
Yes.
of cold
So
temperature.
that group, they kind of got killed back for me 2 years ago, but they came back, and we're back to that physical size. Didn't have quite the bloom,
Right.
but we'll have the bloom back.
Yeah.
But the next one that I want to show you, this is the guy that's getting the press in the Endless Summer group right now. Brand new to the market, Bloomstruck. And this one is going to be a little bit more purple than blue. You'll get some pinks, though, again with the pH issue. The reason this one is better is about 3 or 4-fold. The plant is sturdier, and the flowers won't flop over on it. It's going to be a different color, a little more compact, and then probably after we had 2 nights ago, one of the most important things, this one is slightly hardier. They're claiming that this plant will go down to 15 or 20 below and not lose their flowers. I think the jury's still out on that, but I love this one. This is the next plant that's going in my yard. I got 10 of them waiting for the ground to thaw out to get in my yard.
I think something's going to have to go in mine also. I have to talk to you about that.
So a really, really good plant. And remember Bloomstruck. Again, it's going to be in that blue pot like the whole Endless Summer group. So
good. It's a beauty. No, misnamed here.
Yes.
Got it wrong.
I got a misname on this one.
He didn't do it.
This is Annabelle right here. Annabelle is a great plant. It's been out there. You probably had, but this is one of those places where genetics hasn't helped us. Genetics has tried to come in and replace it with several new ones. None of them have gotten to the point, again, where Annabelle, which this one, great for shade, that literally you'll get 25 of those pure white blooms on that plant. Incredible to light up a dark space.
Good.
We can jump on to the next one. This is Bobo.
There's
right?
Bobo.
We finally got Bobo up. But
Not Bow Bow Bobo.
Bobo is in the paniculata family. We'll
Yeah.
get flowers in August, and they'll stay around through frost.
That's good.
The great thing about Bobo is Bobo, unlike the next one we'll show you, but I'm not going to go there yet, but is going to have more of a pure white bloom to it and then fade over into a kind of a pinkish flower.
And size on this one?
That one is about a 4x4 ultimate size.
Which most people, even with a small garden, can enjoy.
Yes, absolutely. Size matters on this one.
Right.
It's a great, the plant will literally almost bloom itself to death, which you're seeing right there. If we can jump on
Spectacular.
to the next one. Limelight, that's one of my favorites. That's a big one. It's going to get about 6 or 7 feet. But bloom and use it as a hedge. And that's the big thing now is people are using deciduous shrubs as hedges. Right. Go in and hedge off some space, and those panicles will be 8 or 9, 10 inches long. Incredible.
It's beautiful.
The next one I want to show is one that I'm super excited about, and we were just talking about in the break. Vanilla strawberry.
Wow.
Another one in the paniculata group, but it will fade from kind of a cream color to this red. Interestingly, I took some of these flowers to church last year, and somebody said, "How did you paint those flowers such a pretty red on them?"
Yeah, I want one of those.
A really good one.
It's gorgeous.
That is. I love that color.
Again, great colors, and it changes up color in the landscape.
All right.
And I'll talk in the seminar about, they have a dwarf version of this guy out there.
Great.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That I find really exciting too. That 4-foot size,
Yes.
anybody can deal with.
Absolutely fits into so many landscapes so well.
Right.
Yeah, and
right.
so many of our customers say, "How can I prune back my hydrangeas too tall?" It's choose one now.
Yes.
Now you've got some choices.
Pick the right plant for the application up front.
Absolutely, and then you don't have to worry about
Yes.
pruning it.
All right. We're going to take a break. When we come back, I want you to explain nativar.
Nativar. Okay.
All right. We'll be right back. We've been talking about some of the beautiful flowering plants that you all are growing as well, and again, you had mentioned to me the name nativar.
Yes.
And that intrigues me. So,
Nativar.
what is a nativar?
I will go down that one as best and try to explain it.
Okay.
The whole native plant thing, and people want native plants. And that one has really taken off. But what the interesting thing, and the purists begin to fight with us a little bit on this one, but what we do is we get the native plant and we find cultivars of the native plant, and we call them nativars.
Okay.
And why do we go to nativars in the cultivar? So we find a good plant, and one of them I'll show you in a minute, Virginia Sweetspire, which is a great plant, but we can find a cultivar of it that maybe is shorter, more compact, more reliable, better blooms.
Right.
So it's a little bit, it's kind of again, not the purest, but it really opens up the native market.
Gotcha. I like that term.
Yes. So pretty wild one there.
I like it too, and as you said, there are purists, and we have to respect one another and what we think, but I certainly don't want to see my garden depend totally on natives.
Yes.
And I'm thrilled that you all have really expanded your shrub market
Yes.
with us.
It's
Looking
in
forward to
the
that.
expansion. It was kind of one of those things you don't want to be doing only one thing, and so
No.
you know, the flower and shrub. You know, we're doing. I showed you 6 or so hydrangeas. We're doing 25 hydrangeas. You know, we're doing a dozen buddleias. But overall, Debbie was asking during the break, how many different plants? I think we're growing with close to 1,500 different varieties of plants.
Wow, that's great. Well, I'm intrigued even with just the few pictures that you sent up, because like the hydrangeas, a lot of us are dealing with smaller properties, a lot of people are, and should choose plants that are going to fit well so that they're not fighting pruning.
Absolutely.
And you've got some great ones here.
Yes, yes, and I think we'll hit a couple that here that are good small plants. If we could bring up the first picture, this is 9-bark. The variety is Tiny Wine. A really exciting plant for us. You can see the burgundy foliage. You get the burgundy foliage from beginning to the end of the season, and then you get the flower on it. You get that little pinkish flower on it, so you get great color even when it's not blooming, and then that bloom absolutely covers the plant. It has a bigger brother, Summer Wine, which is a really good plant too, but this one only gets about 3 by 4 by 4. Summer Wine is about 6 by 6.
And you know, I'm always pushing the envelope because I have no positive all-day sun anywhere in my garden, but I have pretty good luck with a lot of things.
Yes.
Now, when we say about a plant that this is a full sun plant, this one too will tolerate some shade.
Yes, you can get it into some shade. You're probably going to sacrifice a little bit of the foliage color and maybe a little bit of bloom, but it will go into there and work out. And you know, we go back to the hydrangeas. A lot of those will take, especially the paniculatas, will take full sun, but they will go into shade and do perfectly well.
Because a lot of us have to look for those things, you know, and have to be willing to sometimes lose a little color.
Yes.
Just a little.
And that last one, the Tiny Wine, deer resistance. They don't like that.
That's a goodie.
Yes, and that's a huge one.
Okay, deer resistant. I'm writing that down.
and I'll hit on some of those shrubs when we do the seminar. I've got a bunch of good, and we've got some that are deer resistant just kind of because of the timing. You know, the deer might browse them, but the timing doesn't affect the bloom because of when they browse.
He has a wonderful list of all these shrubs because I helped him get it ready.
Yes.
So we come to the seminar, got to do it.
And this, you know, up front, I'm not a butterfly bush guy, but there's some really new, neat stuff coming out in the butterfly bush world. This is kind of in the Lo and Behold series. This is Blue Chip Junior, which is a really dwarf. This guy is only about 1.5 feet tall and about 2 or 3 feet wide. And the huge other thing on this guy is it's seedless. This is not going to reseed in your yard.
That is an advantage.
Absolutely, and it's got 2 or 3 sisters in that family. It's a purple, there's a white, there's a pink, and then there's another shade of purple, kind of more of a lavender color.
I have a feeling this is in your garden.
It's not.
That
one is not. I put the butterfly bush I put in mine is another one of my favorite, Ms. Molly.
Okay.
There's a Ms. Molly and Ms. Ruby that are a little bit bigger, and I picked that one just because the vividness of the flower in that one. It's a red, and there's not many good reds out there.
I like that. Well, I like the fact that you've got a lot going on bloom-wise here, and possibly hydrangea in the background, although I guess it could be a rose.
I couldn't, you know, and I don't take as many pictures in my yard as I should because with the blooming, I'm probably working.
That's right.
That's right. Now,
and I brought up Sweet Spire a little bit earlier, and this is one of those nativars that we throw out there. We get a white bloom in the spring, you get green foliage, and then in the fall, it turns to this brilliant red.
That's gorgeous.
It's lovely. And this is Little Henry, huh?
Little Henry, yes. And there's another, its big brother is Henry's Garnet if you want something a little bigger. But again, size is what we're talking about on some of these plants. That plant will only get up to, it's about a 2 by 2 plant or a 3 by 3, depending on the location. But super good fall color and a spring bloom, so you get a wider season of what's going on.
Great to have something interesting in the garden at all times. I like this plant very much. Absolutely.
And the next one, this was one I took just this week before, last week, right before the snow started. Winterberry, to me, every yard needs some good winterberry. That's Red Sprite in there, which has been one of the standbys. Literally just absolutely covered with fruit. You can see it from 150 feet away. You're not going to get much out of this plant during the summer. It's going to be just a green shrub. But when the leaves fall off, you get color with berries for about 5 months. I'm going to take out some forsythia and put in a bigger hedge of these because forsythia I'm getting 2 weeks of color. This guy I'm getting for 4 months.
Yes, and the birds do eat this, but it's not the first thing they eat.
That's correct.
Not at my house anyway.
That is not their choice to start with.
Now you need a little boy.
You do need a boy with them. You do need, Red Sprite,
one little boy.
Little boy. Well, one boy is pretty good for a whole lot of girls. So,
Oh, well.
you need Jim Dandy to take care of that one. So.
Jim Dandy.
Jim
Yes,
Dandy is its
that does make a difference.
Absolutely.
You do need they need to bloom at the same time. One little boy planted somewhere, all you little girls, and you'll be so happy. Perfect Christmas
Occasionally you'll have to
decorations.
supplement a little bit of water to keep from losing the berries on a really dry summer.
Yeah, they do like water.
Yes.
And they'll take a moist area.
Yes.
Absolutely.
All right, we've got to take another little break, and we will be right back, so stay tuned. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Well, this hour is flying by, but the good thing about this is that you can go to the seminar afterwards and learn more.
And we really do encourage you to do that. I know the weather isn't sounding terribly good right now, but the seminar starts at 10. Robert and I will leave here and drive out to the Fair Oaks location, and he's just given you a teaser as to what he's learned for all these years, because he's lived down on the farm for all these years.
Yes. Come on out. We're going to talk about a lot of new plants, a lot of other plants. We haven't even talked about crepe myrtles and a lot of other things that are on my A1 list, and a lot of new, great, exciting stuff. And we'll go deeper into some of these ones that we briefly hit on today and talk about boxwood. And I'll talk about boxwood as long as you want. I'm kind of a boxwood geek, but I'm enjoying this side of it much more.
He inherited the geek thing from his father, I know, because he definitely is. I've had such a pleasure in knowing your father and knowing you kids too growing up. It's been wonderful, because it's wonderful to see a family operation grow and succeed. I have been, for almost 40 years now, a part of the Merrifield family growing up.
That's right.
We've
all grown up together.
Yes, I remember Debbie when she was very young,
That's right.
very, very young. Yes.
That was yesterday, right?
That was yesterday. It does seem like it. And so I'm particularly appreciative of Robert and his father and his brothers too. I just haven't gotten to know them as well. And all the wonderful work that they've done, because they love these plants. Yes, they make a living at it. We all have to make a living at something, okay? But it's wonderful when you enjoy that.
It is, and it's exciting what's happening and to be on the front end, and we're really trying hard to be out on the front end with some of these plants and knowing what's happening, because the game is changing so fast, and again, there's so much coming in and trying to weed through and figure out what's right. We look back 40 years ago, we were growing 3 or 4 plants, and today again we're growing over 1,000
It's so exciting.
different plants, and almost overwhelming to try to look at that, but and to try to stay on what's new, and we're trying to really lead the front end on the boxwood side, the research and this disease things and all, and making sure we're getting ahead of it, so you as the gardener are not having to deal with boxwood leaf miners and blight and things.
And that's a good thing, because we all love our environment. We all want to destroy it. And one of the things that we're going to feature next week is, to take advantage of coming into our garden centers, because we have such expertise there to decide what is wrong with this plant. When do you treat it? Those things are so important, and you know how important they are.
Yes, absolutely. Just
proper time.
Again, trying to stay ahead of it, and as you mentioned earlier, being preventative versus curative.
Right.
And it's so much easier to prevent those problems and stay up front.
Yeah.
Well, it's exciting that there's so many new things on the horizon.
Yes, absolutely. And it's interesting, the Europeans are really the front lead in a lot of this stuff, and we're seeing a lot of new genetics coming out of Europe. But the opposite is the Boxwood side, is we're pushing that east while they're pushing all their stuff back this way.
Interesting.
Well, it's a learning, it's a swapping, it's a learning process for all of us.
I had a great trip last winter. I was able to go to Germany to their big show of all of Europe and to see what's going on over there. And
Across
it's
the
just,
water.
it's amazing to see, and that this thing is bigger than who we are.
Right.
It's big. So.
Well, I know you and your father have also been to Russia.
Yes.
Checking out those Boxwood there.
Been here, there, and many places on it, yes.
Absolutely.
That's great. And at the seminar today, you're going to take what you've done today on the show and expand.
Absolutely.
Yes.
They maybe not talk as much about care there, is because I want to get into these 45 or 50 varieties of plants that I think you need in your landscape. I think you do
so
because
too.
I got them.
That's right.
I've got them in my yard, so you need them in your
I
yard.
know one I'm getting in my yard.
Well, we've already decided, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we have.
Well, thank you so much for being here today. And really, when we finish the show today, these guys are going to hop in their car right away and head over to the Fair Oaks location for the seminar. And the seminar will start at 10.
Yes.
That's right.
Okay, so take advantage of that. But before we go, we have an announcement to share with you today. Due to programming changes, we'll no longer be able to bring you our show on Saturday mornings. So next week's show will be our last episode of Merrifield's Gardening Advisor. It's been such a joy and a privilege to be able to share the gardening world with you each week for the past 25 years. I know Peggy and David feel the same way. Yeah. And we've been very thankful to be part of the News Channel 8 family since the beginning of the station. So we hope you'll join us next Saturday for a very special final episode where we're going to share some fond memories and take a look at the future.
And bring our Kleenex.
And bring our Kleenex. So we do hope you'll join us next week. It has been such a wonderful thing to be able to do this show.
Well, the education process is so fantastic. Again, we're talking with Robert about that. And they're doing it all the time. He does seminars, and others do too, from Saunders Brothers. And we learn so much from each other. And we never stop learning.
That's right. So we're calling next week's show Looking Back, Looking Ahead, because we'll talk about things in the future.
And have to look ahead.
Absolutely. So have a great week. Stop by the seminars, whether you come to Roberts or one of the other ones. You've got to make a choice, but that's okay. Have a great week. Bye-bye.